Mr. Speaker, my question is addressed to the Honourable Minister of Health and Wellness, whether in regard to alleged medical negligence relating to births in regional hospitals occurring from 1st February to 15th April 2021, he will state the number of complaints received, indicating the number thereof having been the subject of further inquiry by the Standing Committee on Medical Negligence, indicating the date of the start of inquiries and if the said inquiries have now been completed and the number thereof, if any, referred to the Medical Council for further action.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in May 2020, there were 44 outstanding cases of alleged medical negligence, some of which dated back to 2017 and were still pending at the level of the independent inquiry committees. Due to the heavy load,
my question relates not to way back, relates to 1st of February to 15th April, the number of cases. I fail to understand why the Minister is taking us back to May 2020, etc. I'd like your help, Mr. Speaker, to ask the Minister to stick to the question.
You made your point.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with a view to addressing this situation, in June 2020, the government set up the Medical Negligence Standing Committee to carry out preliminary investigations into all cases of complaints of alleged medical negligence at the level of public health institutions before referring the matter to the relevant statutory regulatory body. The Medical Negligence Standing Committee started its first investigation on 2nd July 2020. Mr. Speaker, sir, since the setting up of the Medical Negligence Standing Committee in June 2020, the committee has been meeting at least twice a week, except during the lockdown periods, and have been investigating into 49 cases of alleged medical negligence. Out of the 49 cases, 36 cases have been completed. Out of the 36 cases completed, 9 cases concluded with medical negligence and were referred to the respective statutory disciplinary bodies as appropriate. Mr. Speaker, sir, 2 complaints have been received at my ministry from 1st February to 15th April 2021. And with regard to Part A of the private notice question, I'm informed that from 1st February to 15 April 2021, 2 cases of newborn deaths have been referred to the Medical Negligence Standing Committee for an in-depth inquiry. Case of late baby PR at SSRN Hospital. Mr. Speaker, sir, following a complaint from the father of late baby PR on 14th April 2021 to the police and subsequently referred to my ministry on the same date after examination of the preliminary report from the Regional Health Director, SSRN Hospital at the level of my ministry, the case of alleged medical negligence in respect to the death of baby PR at SSRN Hospital was referred to the Medical Negligence Standing Committee and is expected to complete and submit its report before end of this month. Case of baby EQ of Jawaharlal Nehru Hospital. I'm informed that on 5th of February 2021, it was decided to expedite delivery to minimize maternal complications. I am informed that the baby was not responsive. Since the fetus was of 24 weeks gestation, it was considered as an abortion. I am also informed that the consultant gynecologist, during his usual ward round, confirmed signs of life in the form of moaning and labored breathing, and subsequently shifted the baby to neonatal ICU. I am further informed that as at date, the baby is still in the neonatal ICU and her condition is stable. Mr. Speaker, sir, the case has been referred to Medical Negligence Standing Committee for inquiry on 4th May 2021, and I'm informed that preliminary inquiry has already started since 5th May 2021, and the next meeting is scheduled on 17th May 2021. Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to Part B of the private notice question, my ministry is awaiting the reports from the Medical Negligence Standing Committee.
Mr. Speaker, firstly, let me table 2 letters from each of the families asking me to take up this matter in the House. Also, Mr. Teba, at this outset, I will table notification of birth for baby 𝗛𝗲𝗴𝗵𝗵𝗁, which says clearly and contradicts the 2 statements made by the Honourable Minister as to the baby being 22 weeks and then 24 weeks. The notification of birth signed by Dr. 𝗛𝗲𝗴𝗵𝗵 himself, the gynecologist, says the baby is 26 weeks, Mr. Speaker, and that is extremely important. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to ask some general questions on behalf of all the mothers who have to use the public services. Now, the first question, Mr. Speaker, the PRB reports have, over the years now, and the last PRB report also, have stated the need, have recommended that gynecologists and pediatricians be employed and kept at the hospital on a 24-hour, 7-day basis. That has, Mr. Speaker, I asked the Honourable Minister whether he will arrange this very week for this PRB report recommendation, I have the section, etc., to be implemented so that any time, day or night, during a bank holiday or otherwise, a mother entering a regional hospital has at disposal a gynecologist and a pediatrician, Mr. Speaker. That is in the PRB report, and I will also table that.
Mr. Speaker, sir, concerning the PRB report, I totally agree with the Honourable Leader of Opposition that we need to have gynecologists and pediatricians in call in our service. And obviously, this will improve the whole child and maternal care at our services. But at the same time, in 2013, when the PRB recommended such action to be taken, we didn't have the number of specialists in the service. Nevertheless, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are working on the post of registrar, and we have recently submitted a proposition to the Ministry of Finance so that we can create this post of registrar services. The grade of registrar was created with the philosophy of having an intermediate grade between medical and health officers and that of specialists and senior officers.
Speaker, I thank the Minister for his reply, but there's some confusion. The PRB report has not asked for doctors, specialists to be on call, which, as you said, but to be physically present in the hospital. And Mr. Speaker, I look forward to, can the Minister tell us when we can expect to have registrars, which are middle-ranking doctors, posted in our regional hospitals to deal with these types of emergencies?
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, sir, on-call gynecologists are on call on daily basis in the hospital, but to be physically present, as I mentioned earlier, that we need to have more specialists, more gynecologists so that we can implement such. But for the post of registrar, the ministry has already worked all the terms and conditions and the procedures.
Mr. Speaker, concerning the complaints procedure, both the Director of Audit and the Public Accounts Committee have made very strong negative remarks about the current complaints procedure in his ministry. Mr. Speaker, regarding baby 𝗛𝗲𝗴𝗵𝗵𝗁, baby Q, the mother made her complaint on the 16th of February. It was only after there was a large article, 2-page article in weekend newspaper, that apparently the matter has now been taken up by the Medical Complaints Committee. How can you explain, Mr. Speaker, that for the 3 months nearly, the mother has not even been contacted once, not even an acknowledgement once by the Roadbay Hospital, and what disciplinary action is going to take about this?
The complaint was made to the police. We received the complaint from the police on the day that I've already mentioned, and on the same day we have initiated that an inquiry to be done as the procedure is at the level of the hospital, And then through that procedures, we have already referred the case to the Medical Negligence Standing Committee.
Speaker, this is very worrying. Again, the minister is being misinformed by Rosebell Hospital. The lady went personally to deliver a complaint letter. It was picked up by the receptionist, not even by a doctor at the hospital there, Rosebell Hospital. Has this ministry no record of that complaint made at Rosebell Hospital on the 16th of February, nearly 3 months ago? Not the police complaint, that's another one. I'm asking about the complaint in your hospital, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I've already given the procedures that have been followed, the complaint that we have received through the police, and now, if ever there is a complaint by the lady at the level of the hospital, we would have, the ministry would have been informed about the complaint and immediate action would have been taken.
It's not the time to say that this poor suffering lady is a liar and has not submitted the complaint. This is not the time to say so. I would ask the Honourable Minister to inquire, call the lady, inquire, and find out whether she has or not, as she has told me personally, submitted, and the circumstances in which it was taken. This is a very serious matter. Eh? It can happen to any of your parents. Eh? So be careful. Now, ask that, don't treat her as a liar. Speak to her and find out what has happened to the complaint, because so far, as I can see, Rosebell Hospital, Nehru Hospital has given you 2 inaccurate answers, easily proven by the birth certificate and by the statement of this poor mother, Mr. Speaker. This shows, Mr. Speaker.
Put the question.
This is the question. This shows, and with the Minister that agree, that the whole complaints procedure...
No. Put the question.
Let me ask a question. The whole complaints procedure is bancal and needs to be changed, Mr. Speaker, and needs to be reviewed. And will the Minister ask an outside consultant, a firm of consultants, to look at the whole complaints procedure? Because here's a case of wrongdoing and misinformation.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I will inquire and inform the House whether there has been a complaint lodged at the level of the hospital. It's been taking only few months or few weeks to deliver the report from a complaint.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, therefore I would ask the Minister not only to ask the hospital, but to contact the lady herself, please.
Yes, sure.
Now, I'm going to talk now about baby Ram. Ask about baby Ram, Mr. Speaker. The baby, I'm not going to. Very, very shocking what happened, Mr. Speaker. So let's say that the head was severed. Doesn't the Minister agree that the basic human decency would have been to suture the head back before giving it to the parents and not giving it in 2 parts to the parent? This is my question.
No comments. Only one leader of the opposition.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I will take this, what you've said, and I believe that this has to be, the experts have to give us whether this has to be sutured, because I believe that there is a case, and it is a police case. What has to be done after that? I am not the forensic medical practitioner or the forensic expert to give an advice on this, but I will surely share your views to the police, to the forensic expert.
Give instructions that should this, God forbid, happen again, then it will be human decency, the head should be suited back on. Mr. Speaker, I'll ask to ask the Minister also. Is his ministry so poor that a baby has to be given to his mother in a biscuit box, store biscuit box? Is that practice, and what disciplinary action have you taken, and what instructions will the minister give so that never again has this sort of occurrence happen again? I will table this, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, sir, about what the Honourable Leader of Opposition has said, it is the police medical officer who can only do such thing, and the sutures, all that, it has to be done at that level. It is not the ministry. Whenever such incident has happened, the ministry will not undertake to do the suturing.
Speaker, will the Honourable Minister speak to the police, a medical officer, whatever, so that this is done in the future? There's a solution to everything. And Mr. Speaker, therefore, as far as the cardboard box is concerned, has not replied about that one. There's also
Mr.
the
Speaker,
police.
sir, again, I've already
You
said...
are saying it's the Prime Minister.
Once, Mr.
One by
Speaker,
one.
sir, I've already replied. Once this incident has taken place, the police is in charge of everything. And now it's the police and the police medical officer
You are
who
not
has
answering the
to...
question. Quiet.
Yeah. But
Quiet.
But at this point of time, I won't make any comments on that because this is an inquiry still ongoing.
About the photo, there's no need for an inquiry. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to come now to the issue of echography, ultrasound. In overseas, Mr. Speaker, nurses are trained to carry out ultrasound and see what position the baby is, whether it is breached or not breached, or weight, etc. In Mauritius, it's not true. The nurses are no longer trained to do echography. So I'm going to ask the Honourable Minister whether he will arrange, as in the past in Mauritius, to have midwives and other nurses trained, so that even when the gynecologist is not there, until you have him full time, that these nurses can do echography and find out the basics of the position of the baby and the size, etc. It's a basic question, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, sir, so far my information is nurses working in midwife, they are trained to do ultrasound, and their training to do ultrasound is for the beginning of the pregnancy. And when it comes to at this stage of pregnancy, it is the gynecologists, the specialist gynecologists who are trained, who should do the ultrasound.
There is obviously, with regard to both baby Ram and baby 𝗏𝗏, the lack of a formal protocol at the hospitals. As far as baby 𝗏𝗏 is concerned, a protocol is required so that the threshold of viability, i.e. the number of weeks that is to be considered, a baby is to be considered as viable, and also the procedures for premature and breech births in Mauritius. I'd like to ask the Honourable Minister whether he will not see to it, he will not agree to have urgently a protocol on these issues so that we no longer have these highly regrettable incidents in our hospitals.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I have a report on the viability of the age of fetus, and I will briefly read this viability. I'll table this report about the age of viability.